Let's be real. And if you think I'm a total idiot, let's talk about it. People online calling me a grifter. I mean, it's like, is that all you can throw at me? That doesn't even make sense. Where's the money part? What am I swindling?
Bishop, let me ask you a tough question. Father Martin, how many parishes is he allowed to enter and say Mass in around the United States compared to how many parishes are you allowed to enter and to say Mass in?
To celebrate sacraments in the state of sin, mortal sin, is sacrilege. And that's what was encouraged and celebrated and that's tragic. This man thinks he's now a member of the Catholic Church. I mean, it's not my juridical responsibility to correct it, but who cares about the juridical responsibility when the basic laws of our faith, the teachings of the faith, are just being pushed aside?
By the way, my name is Joe McClane. I host a radio program called A Catholic Take, where we look at the world through a Catholic lens. I'd love for you to hang out with us. If you like it, give it a thumbs up and let us know what you think in the comments below.
But I want to get into this with His Eminence Bishop Joseph Strickland. There was last week the scandal, yet again, another scandal by Father James Martin, bringing a active, unrepentant, not even unabashedly gay man into the church. I'm glad he's coming into the church, don't get me wrong. But shouldn't we go and sin no more? Shouldn't we be repentant and put away the old and put on the new? Shouldn't we die with Christ in the waters of baptism and rise with him again as a new man? But apparently that's not the way things work with Bishop, or rather, was that a Freudian slip with Father James Martin? But the only person to speak out about it was Bishop Joseph Strickland on the floor of the USCCB. Praise be to God for his humble and powerful witness. He joins us this morning to talk about it. Your Excellency, good morning. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Joe.
Let's just start with, it's your first meeting back to the USCCB since 2023. Just besides this issue, what was that like for you entering that room? How were you received?
Well, it was kind of deja vu all over again. Very similar. And so really ironic that repeating a lot of the same issues when I spoke 7 years ago. And I think the silence when I spoke just really is the indicator of where things are, which is sad. But the other bishops were cordial. Some said that they were glad to see me there. Even after I spoke, which was fairly typical in the past when I would speak up about things. No one says a word when I'm speaking, but afterwards, there were a handful that said, thank you for speaking up, or that needed to be said, or something similar. So supportive words, but I guess my question is always, why don't you join me? Why don't we have more than one voice speaking simple truth? And really, Joe, I'm not a big, complicated guy. You've been with me. I'm just a guy. But I know the truth. I know the catechism. I know what the Catholic Church teaches. And 7 years ago, I asked, and I have to ask the same question again, even more loudly, do we believe it or not? Speaking to the bishops of that conference, the bishops of the United States, and really the bishops of the world, do we believe what the church teaches or not? And too many of our actions, and I followed up that, what I said at the meeting with a post on X that really spoke more clearly, more bluntly about what I'm concerned about, the little ones being, just horribly harmed in so many different ways by these shepherds. And talking about that incident with the church there in New York and Father James Martin present and all of that. Joe, I agree with you. It's wonderful when people join the Catholic Church, but the young man that went through the motions didn't really join the church. He committed sacrilege. Probably not so much on him as on, he spoke of how inspired he was by Pope Francis. And then Father James Martin really encouraging, ignore your sin. Don't worry about repentance. Just come on in. That is, the church teaches about that. To celebrate sacraments in the state of sin, mortal sin, is sacrilege. And that's what was encouraged and celebrated. And that's tragic. This man thinks he's now a member of the Catholic Church. But the sacraments can't just be celebrated willy-nilly. They have to be, I mean, all of us are sinners, but when we celebrate confirmation, we encourage those candidates to go to confession prior to celebrating the sacrament. The same thing for marriage. The same thing, of course, for priesthood or diaconate or episcopacy. You go to confession to be as free of sin as possible when you're about to celebrate a sacrament. And, it didn't happen clearly, and they received communion. So that it's just a fake picture of the church that is fooling a lot of people, including probably those two men who definitely need to be taught, loved, and really loved and taught what the church teaches. It really, like I said, it comes down to very basic, simple realities. And the reality is, as I spoke to the bishops, we're all just men, children of God. We all have the same obligation as you do, Joe, as everyone who works with you, as every human being, to live the truth that God has revealed to us. And people say, how dare I speak up to popes or bishops? But they're just men. Yes, they have a very significant office that we respect, an office that Christ established that won't go away. But sometimes the men filling those offices as bishops, as shepherds, they're not doing their job. And the charitable thing is to say, brothers, get back to what you're supposed to be doing, because otherwise a day of judgment will come. Thankfully, we don't judge each other. But I wouldn't want to be in the shoes of a lot of these bishops that are just flaunting the message of the church, the doctrine, the deposit of faith, this looking back since the very beginning of the church. If you read the fathers of the church, and Joe, I know you have, this is not what they taught us from the very beginning. And as somebody pointed out, and I think I don't feel brave, I'm just doing the basics. But someone pointed out that John the Baptist really was beheaded because he wouldn't buckle on what true marriage is. And Herod and his so-called wife didn't like it. I'm here centuries later speaking really about the same thing. And someone thanked me online for defending marriage. That's what it's about. What is marriage? And those two men are not in a marriage, and they're living a sinful life that the church calls people away from. And here they are being welcomed in the church, supposedly. But as I said before, according to church teaching, it's not a judgment of them. I don't know their intentions, but they need to be taught to have rightly formed intentions. And whatever their intentions, the church teaches their action was sacrilege. And the priests who know that, who know what the church teaches, it's really definitely on them. I mean, the two men can't just totally be exonerated because they have an obligation too to know the truth. If you're going to join the Catholic Church, you need to be willing. And was there any sort of profession of faith that I believe all that the church teaches? Then these men lied. If they gave that profession of faith, which should have been part of that ceremony, then they obviously don't believe everything that the Catholic Church teaches, because living the way they're living in a sexual relationship between two men, call it a marriage or whatever, but that relationship is not faithful to the teachings of the church. It's disordered as far as the church teaches. And Father James Martin says, we need to change that word. It speaks truth that isn't going to change. And it's so bad that the shepherds of the church are not immediately handling a situation like that and correcting it. I mean, it's not my juridical responsibility to correct it, but who cares about the juridical responsibility when the basic laws of our faith, the teachings of the faith, are just being pushed aside for this new world order that seems to be the popular thing? And I did mention Pope Leo because he didn't have a ceremony, but he welcomed in the Vatican, from everything that was reported, he welcomed two men. I mean, I'm sure you saw it, has these. And did he say, brothers, we love you. Come out of your sinful path? From what the report said, maybe he said that, but it needs to be reported. If Pope Leo said, come back to the faith, come away from your sin. But what was reported, they talked about Wordle. I don't even know what Wordle is, but it was silliness in the face of two men whose souls are in peril. That's not what a pope does. And out of respect for him, we say, Holy Father, get back to the job. Get back to who you're supposed to be, the vicar of Christ. And I'm sure you get contacted by people all the time, Joe. And I've read from priests just in the midst of all this saying, thank you, Bishop, and help me because my bishop is basically shutting me down because I'm teaching what we know the truth to be. And that's happening around the world, certainly in this country, but around the world. The whole church is in a bad way. I mean, as we've said before, the church exists triumphantly in heaven and they are praying for us. But we have to use our free will to align ourselves with that truth of the church that already exists and is worshiping God in the eternal liturgy. That's what we need. That is our goal. The salvation of souls is what the church is here for. And we're not getting the job done when we see these things happening.
Well said. We're down to just about a minute and a half before we have to go to break. One of the things that a lot of Catholics, myself included, were really miffed about was after you made your statement, they were the panel up at the top there. They were like, "Oh, okay, that's nice. Moving on now," and they just wanted to move on. It felt very awkward as far as that goes, and yet they put out a very forceful statement against the Trump administration on immigration, and it just seems like it's hypocritical to many of us Catholics to see this forceful statement against what they see as an injustice. They are very concerned about people who broke the law to get into our country and now how they're being treated as a result of that decision of breaking the law. They're very concerned about that. I mean, pastoral access to sacraments, sure, we're all concerned about that. Just like for trad Catholics who have been denied access to pastoral care and sacraments. But what about were they as equally forceful when it came to like the suffering in Nigeria or Sudan or Syria or Turkey, places where Christians are being persecuted almost every single day? Was there a forceful statement about that? These are some of the questions I have, and if we have time, I want to get your response to when people charge you for just being a grifter. Bishop, it seems like they don't want to hear any opposition whatsoever. Just shut it all down and go along to get along. It seems to be the order of the day. We're talking with Bishop Joseph Strickland about his return to the U.S. Bishops' Conference. I'm going to link to his not only his X feed post about millstones and the cry of the little ones, great, powerful statement, but also his pillarsofaith.net, which, by the way, there's a brand new fraternity being released there. So you can join the fraternity at pillarsofaith.net. We'll put it in the show notes as well. Bishop Strickland, welcome back. Thanks for hanging out with us. You know, one of the things that really bothered me was just how forceful they are against what they see as an injustice against immigrants. I mean, we don't hate immigrants. We just don't want illegal immigration. I don't know why that's so challenging for so many, but apparently it is. No illegal immigration. Sorry, it has to be legal. But were they as forceful? They certainly weren't as forceful on Jimmy Martin because they didn't even want to hear what you had to say. They just wanted to move on. But what about, were they as forceful as the persecution in Nigeria, Sudan, Syria, and other parts of the world where China, where Catholics are being persecuted every day? It seems like they pick and choose when to have words of force. What say you?
Well, absolutely, Joe. The picking and choosing is what infuriated me especially with the border issues, because certainly there are people that are just, I mean, they're all coming illegally, so that has to be handled. But there are families, there are innocent people looking for a better life, but there are also rapists and people that have an agenda against this country and drug dealers, and they're all just, all flowing in together because there was no control under the Biden administration. To go after Trump is pure hypocrisy. They never said boo about Biden's horrible policies of pushing abortion. I mean, if we had not elected Trump again, and he's got serious issues, I mean, he's not strong on the sanctity of life, but it would have been even worse if we had President Kamala, because she was pushing infanticide and all the things that are pushed by those who really hate the Catholic Church. So the bishops are just getting it wrong all over again. And I'm glad to be the one lone voice that they think is this idiot, I guess. I mean, you mentioned people online calling me a grifter. I mean, it's like, is that all you can throw at me? That doesn't even make sense. Where's the money part? What am I swindling? A grifter is someone who swindles people out of money through fraud. What did I say that had anything to do with money? But I think they just called Strickland's a grifter because they can't handle the truth. And they couldn't think of anything else bad to say, so they just had to throw something at me because they don't want to hear the truth. The truth sets us free. And when we are so steeped in denying the truth, it binds us more and more to the chaos, to the sinfulness, to the harm of the little ones. And that's what I felt compelled to speak about. We've got to encourage people to know that what is coming too often out of the Vatican, what's coming out of the USCCB, is not true to the church. We don't condemn those people. We don't leave the church, but we need to know very clearly what the church teaches. And this push for open borders that's coming out of the Vatican and the U.S. bishops, I mean, their statement on immigration left out a lot and forgot to call people, government and individuals, to look for legal ways, ordered ways for people to immigrate. Absolutely, people have a right to, but a nation also, with so many things in life, rights and responsibilities go hand in hand. The people coming have the right to come, but they have the responsibility to follow the laws of the nation. The nation has a right to control its borders, but it has a responsibility to create opportunities for people who want to enter. That rights and responsibilities just sort of goes out the window, and people start talking about emotion and how people feel and forget the basic principles that help us to operate justly and properly. And for the bishops to ignore a big part of that in their statement, it's just harmful to the world. I mean, the church should be here to guide all of humanity in the truth. And we're doing a pretty less than mediocre job of that right now because people are confused, and too many people in the church don't seem to believe the truth that the church teaches. So they're telling people an opposing message. That's called chaos. And chaos is what comes from lawlessness and disorder. And that, I mean, the border situation kind of symbolizes everything that's happening. I mean, we can look at it, Joe, at the same thing. The church has its borders as an institution. There are rules. There is truth that you have to embrace to become Catholic. What we saw with the two men accompanied by Father James Martin, that is a church without borders as an institution. It's just lawlessness on that front as well. Lawlessness is not of God. God gave us commandments. We have to live those commandments. Christ says, if you love me, you will live my commandments.
Amen.
That is not what we're seeing.
Bishop, let me ask you a tough question. Father Martin, how many parishes is he allowed to enter and say Mass in around the United States compared to how many parishes are you allowed to enter and to say Mass in?
Well, he enters a lot. I mean, right here in Texas, he's visited a number of the dioceses and had big conferences and talks that he's given. I mean, that's just recently. That's not, oh, it was years ago. It's been corrected. No, it hasn't. I mean, he's currently coming to Texas and to a parish or a diocese near you. And as you say, Joe, I'm not welcomed in, and there are some that will welcome me, but most it's either they hate what I say, which means they hate the truth of the church, or it's just too politically uncomfortable for them because someone either above them or colleagues are going to give them a hard time if they're welcoming to me. And that's where, it's tough to be there at the meeting. I'm glad I went. I'm definitely glad it's over. But to be there with it's all cordial. But in some ways, Joe, I'd rather let's be real. And if you think I'm a total idiot, let's talk about it. Is it idiotic to say marriage is between a man and a woman and to call people away from what the church teaches is a mortally sinful life? If they're having an active sexual relationship as two men and calling themselves married, do we just turn a blind eye to all that and say, come on in, become Catholic? But we don't have those kinds of frank conversations. It's all just a nice veneer, but underneath it is chaos.
St. Paul says in Philippians chapter 3, which was the reading, the epistle reading in the 62 Missal yesterday, he says, for many walk, of whom I have told you often, and now tell you weeping. St. Paul crying here, that they are enemies of the cross of Christ, whose end is destruction, whose God is their belly, and whose glory is in their shame, who mind earthly things. Choose. Are you about this world and its politics and its games, or are you about heaven? You got to make a choice. Whose team are you on?
Did you like that video? It's okay. You can admit it. It's perfectly fine. Hey, we cover the big stories of our day, from inside the church to outside the church to all points in between, and we do it from a Catholic perspective. It's called A Catholic Take. It's a radio program Monday through Friday. We live stream it right here on this channel, by the way, so make sure to subscribe, like, and share. We would be very grateful to you. And don't forget, you're going to want to watch this video right here because you don't want to miss anything.